Kei ngā mana, kei ngā reo, kia tātou, ko whakarau I ka mai nei, ko tahi mai nei, I rungi te karanga, kia whakaki o tō tātou nei ki te mātauranga, tēnei ka mihi atu ki a ka tū tēnei, hei māngai mō EnviroHub, ki te tuku mihi ki a koutou katoa. Ina ko tai mai tinana koe, rorohi koe, I nai nei, tatu atu ki a koutou, e mātakitaki ana, muri nei, tēnei ka mihi ki a koutou katoa. Kia tīmata ai tō tātou nei hui, tēnei ka mihi ka karakia hoki. Wairei runga, wairei rero, wairei I ngā hononga ke wairei a tātou, wairei I ngā taupāia, ki tēnā, ki tēnā, tēnei tātou, e tuku koro pētai ki te wāhi ngaro, wairo mai ki a tātou, e ruku ki tēnei kaupapa, ki tēnei mātauranga, kia ora te mātauranga, kia horo ora hoki te ngāhere, tūturu whakamaua ki a tīna, tīna, haumie, huie, tai ki. Kia ora everyone. Before I start, it's not applicable too much because we don't have too many people online, but a quick rundown of the house rules for Zoom. No doubt everyone is well aware of what we need to do when it comes to Zoom, but if you can, keep your mics off. Up to you whether you want to keep your camera on or off. Just know that it can be distracting if it's on and you're doing stuff in the background. And for those of you watching this later, once it's recorded, you can do whatever you like. You're going to have to get used to me as well. Unfortunately, I did break my nose on the weekend, so that's why it does look a little bit messed up. But I'm going to be the MC over the next 3 days as we introduce 3 magnificent speakers. Shortly, I'll pass over to Hannah and she can introduce herself and we'll listen to her kaupapa for the day. At the end of it, we will invite questions. So anyone who does have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or at the end, if we have time and there's not too many, we might go to some people so they can ask their questions live. With that, though, I will now pass over to Hannah. Hannah, kei a koe.
Kia ora tāne, thank you for that. And a warm welcome to you also on behalf of EnviroHub and New Zealand Landcare Trust. Thank you so much for facilitating our regional environment network hui this year. We're very grateful and we're looking forward to it. So kia ora kātou katoa, ko Hannah toko ingoa. I'm a project manager at EnviroHub Bay of Plenty, and the role that I started with was looking after our Sustainable Backyards program, but I also enjoy social media marketing and have done a bit of that over the last 5 years. I enjoy being that bridge between community and care groups and the community and helping them share their kaupapa and share their story. So thank you for joining me today for a brief or introduction social media workshop and a korero on storytelling online. That is our kaupapa this year. For the hui, we're focusing on sharing stories in the digital world, and it's changing over time, so how we can tap into that and how we can make use of the digital world to share our story with the community. So I just thought we're going to cover a bit today, so we'll get into it, but if there are any questions, then pop them in the chat box and then we can go through them at the end. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully this is good. Okay, does that look okay for everyone just before I start? Awesome, thank you. So I just thought before we get into the actual presentation and the workshop, it'd be good to start with the difference. So why are we talking about storytelling online today? What is the difference between having that connection with your community in person and being able to share your story versus online in a digital world? So I guess in person you have a lot more to work with. You can share your story and who you are and the essence of what you do through more mediums. You have body language, expression, your voice, an energy that you can connect with, and then all the 5 senses. So I guess sharing the essence of what you do in your mahi can come across a lot easier when you're in person with someone. So why does this look different online? What's the nature of the online world? I guess if we take it down, we then have written text, images, and videos. So if these are the communications that we have left to express who we are and share our story, then how do we make sure that we can remain authentic to who we are and show our essence, or keep the essence alive in an online world? And I think one of the places that we should start with is a brand story. So before we go into anything, when you're taking something online, you want to be quite clear on your brand story. And this can be made up of 5 different areas that we can go into a little bit more. But it's important to start here. And some of you might already know this quite well. It might be something that you have focused in on already and you've got a good plan and you can always refer back to it. But if you don't, this is a good place to start and something that you can start working on. Your brand story, it is your kaupapa, it is who you are, but sometimes just nailing these 5 things can help when you're trying to showcase that online. So we'll go, so we can break these down a little bit more, but these need to be really clear for you. If you're clear on these, then you can showcase this and it becomes clear to your audience as well. They can connect with it a bit more. We want to show people who we are, why we exist in the world, and why our mahi is important. So if we go to the first one, we can start with our mission. So this is communicating your purpose, so why your organization or your group or a business even, why you exist in the first place. What is it that you do? Who are you doing it for? What do you want to achieve with this organization or group? And then what impact do you want to have on the world? So this, we could break it down even further, but these are a good place to start. If you can answer those questions, you often find that you start coming up with more ideas and you can build on this as you start thinking about it. And then the next one is your vision. So where are you going in the future? Where are you going to be going moving forward? What do you hope to achieve, and what does the future look like for you or your organization, or even who you're doing the work for? What do you want to see in the future for them? And then the last one is your values. So this is a big one because it reflects your core principles and ethics and what you believe in as an organization or a group. So what do you stand for? What are your beliefs? What kind of behavior do you support? And how do you treat your community? These are, all 3 of these tie in together, but nailing them individually is really helpful because then all of this will help you showcase or share your message of who you are, and then the audience can connect with that. So I think it might be good to go through an example for some of these, so just what this could look like. So imagine if we have a community planting day, and the goal of that day is to get the community involved with planting some trees that might be restoring a wetland. This is the perfect day for you as an organization or care group to share your story with an online community. So if you have someone that's dedicated to be that person that captures memories of the day and gets some photos, videos, this will help for sharing that after. And then if you have a brand story sorted, when you come to share this story online, then it can all be tied back to that and it becomes consistent, so people will start learning that message, and it's not just as simple as, I guess, sharing a photo of that day, but putting a bit more on there. So why are you doing it? Why would the community want to be involved with this in the future? How is this going to help the whenua? This can all be tied back to storytelling. And it helps to bring people into the moment. So if there's people that aren't there on that day but might be interested in volunteering in the future, the more they know about your story, the more they're going to connect with you and then potentially come and volunteer at the next Spanting Day that you host. And that also brings me to the next slide. So why do we want to be telling our story online? Why is this important? So the first thing, I think, because this is kind of the kaupapa of our hui, it creates a connection. So the way the world is moving, a lot of things are being moved online. So why is it important to kind of nail our story and share that with the world? So connection, and it influences people. So it influences people to act. It creates emotion, influences their behavior, and then this way, I think a good story always connects with the heart. So and this can be in a better way than other forms of communication. We all know that when you hear a good story, you connect with it and you feel that. And if we're talking about even the digital world, we do have to work a bit harder to do that. So always going back to your brand story and your mission, values, this helps with this. And then what else can that do? Why else should we keep sharing our story online? Well, that could also mean more opportunities for you, brand awareness. So people that haven't heard of you before might come across you and want to learn more. It builds a volunteer base. It will build trust with your community. And then this could also potentially help with fundraising opportunities. If you're really clear on what you're doing in the online world, it's obvious on the online world, it's going to help you in many ways. Cool. So I think the next slide, we can talk a bit more about where can we share our story. When we talk about online, what do we actually mean? So we can break it down in a few areas. But I wanted to start with social media. I think there's a few places that you can focus on, but I think a good place to start would be Facebook and Instagram. And then in your own time, you could, maybe if you start with those, you could look into a bit more. But you've got Facebook, Instagram, your website, a blog, and then our newsletters if you send out newsletters. So we can break them down a little bit further. So we start with Facebook. So this is probably one of the most popular social media channels to use. It's a good place to start because it's quite broad with who you can share your story with. 18 to 65 is the age range for this platform, so you're probably going to be able to reach quite a few people depending on who your organisation and who your care group are. A lot of people are going to be hanging out on here. And then, so what kind of things can you share on this? What's something that you can post on Facebook to share your story? So you've got links, so that could be a link back to your own website, or it could be links back to another organisation doing something that you want to share their mahi, or someone that helps, a link to a website or a blog that helps show who you are or explain something a bit more. Then you've got photos and video. Videos always do really well online, and if you can use video as much as you can, then it helps with more engagement. And I think there's a stat, something like 12 videos are shared online, but in particular Facebook, I think 10 to 12 times more than any other form of content. So which makes sense, I guess, because video, you're adding in another form of communication. You can see and hear people, and it creates a bit more of a sense of connection with your audience. And then also another good thing to know is if you do have longer forms or longer stories, then you can put a bit more text on Facebook compared to other social media channels. So don't be afraid to share a bit more of a background or a story, and it could be 2 paragraphs long. that is more accepted on this platform, and a good place to show a bit more in depth of a story. And then some of the features that are really good to use on here that will help with getting your word out, but also it's a fun way to showcase who you are in your stories, is going live. So depending on what the event is and privacy reasons, but you're taking people into the moment while it's happening. So if you did have a community event or an event of some sort that you want to share online, then use the live feature for this. Also stories can be really effective, and I think they last on Facebook as well 24 hours, so it does create a sense of your community being there in the moment at that time. And then also the location and mentions tag, so use these as much as you can, because this will help you to grow and be seen by other members of the community that might not already be following you or part of your journey. And I just want to go into, you can schedule posts for Facebook as well, so I thought it might be good to go into that just briefly. I'm going to stop sharing and share a different screen. Yeah, this is always a useful one to remember, and you can have a play around with it yourself if you want to dive deeper and learn a bit more about it. But one that I want to highlight is the planner feature. So we all know that keeping on top of social media can be quite hard when we're busy, we're out there doing our mahi, so how can we make sure that we're still getting content out there? As if you have this and you have a few moments maybe at the end of the day, you can put, maybe you've got a lot to share, so you can put it all up at one time. It's super easy to use, so you would just click on create post, and it kind of has everything here for you. So I'm not sure if many of you would have seen this before. If you have, then that's awesome, but if not, it's a good tool to look into. And you can control a lot of social media channels in one place. Add text, photo, video, location, so you don't have to remember all of those things. It's kind of here for you. You just need to fill it in. So that's a good one to look into that will help with scheduling content and staying on top of it. That's probably more time management tool than anything, because we know how busy it gets doing your mahi. Cool, get back to the. So now I'll go into Instagram. Instagram is quite a different platform, but again, still a really great place to share stories online. This one, it's more common for a younger generation to be hanging out here, and people kind of look at what you post here a little bit differently. So photos and videos can still be shared, but people are mostly coming to Instagram to look at those stories. They want in the moment, real time updates on what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's an opportunity to provide entertainment, education, inspire people, and a place you can probably show a bit more of your personality. So because it is a younger generation, then don't be afraid to do that. However you think you can show your personality on this platform, then do. Using stories is great, and then an even next step when you get more comfortable or when you start using it a bit more is showing people in that, showing your face, because people connect to people more than anything else. And this having a younger generation hanging out here can be quite a good thing for community and care groups, because potentially there are university students or people about to go into university that might have an interest in biodiversity and conservation already. So then by you showcasing events that are coming up or showing what you do, they could then become part of your volunteer base or attend an event to learn more about you. So I'm just going to keep it there for the social media channels, just to keep it simple today. But there are more that you can explore if you want to in your own time. Another thing to note about Instagram is there are a lot of features to this platform, but some to start with, and the basics that you can get started with, I guess, today and start working on would be these. So you've got a profile image, and you want to make sure that's either a logo that people would recognize or something else that shows who you are in the best way. The bio is a place to put a bit of text so that people can see straight away. Maybe you could bring in a bit of your mission and your vision in here so that people can, it's a straight away, oh yeah, it's a connection to your brand and what you do. You can add a link, and this can be, maybe it goes back to your website or an event that's coming up or a sign up page. There's lots of options in there to pop links in. And then story highlights is another big one that we don't see too many people using at the moment, and you probably want to compare it to, you have a website, but this visual here also works as a website. So whatever you pop here in these story highlights it's an opportunity to show more of who you are, and you can use things from your website or your brand story or your mission here. It's quite visual and appealing, so people can connect with it straight away. And then you've got posts at the bottom, so this is where you can share photos or videos or reels, which is another feature of this platform. But I won't go too much into Instagram today because it's a big thing on its own. But get started on that and see how you feel about it. So another place to share our story is blogs and our website. So this is a big one. This is where most organizations and businesses and groups can share who they are. It's a good place to put those brand story elements like your mission and your vision and your values. You've got more space to put it. It's the perfect opportunity to have those on there. But then also each page that you have on your website is an opportunity to share a story. You can go more detailed into lots of aspects of who you are. So you could share the people behind it, who your staff are, where you're located, previous events. There's lots of things that you can share on your website, but it definitely has one of the better opportunities to share longer form stories that might take a bit more time to write. And then a blog. This is something that's also part of your website that not everyone is using at the moment, but that's another opportunity to share extra stories. Maybe you could dive deeper into individual stories or events, or maybe you can have a volunteer that shares their side of the story here. There's, again, blog is another good one, and there's lots of opportunities with that here. Cool. So now we can talk a little bit more about what kind of things we share. We kind of touched on it briefly, but I'll just go into it a bit more. So when we talk about sharing our story online and we talk about content, what does that mean? So we have photos, video, so both of those are visual kinds of content, and then written text and testimonials. So testimonials can be either a written thing or a spoken thing that you capture on video, but these are all forms of communication. So this is what we're talking about when we refer to content. And photos is a great way to start, and it doesn't have to be anything that's complicated. These days you can, just using a mobile phone to take a quick snapshot of what you're doing that day, can be really effective online. Video is another one. So I guess there's spectrum, like how you want to take that. You could have a video where it shows your full story, but you can even just capturing small moments on your phone is really effective. And I think I've mentioned it before, but video is shared a lot more online, which then opens up the opportunity for us to reach more people and grow our community. People learn who we are and what we do. And then we talk about and just I think another thing to mention about using video more and why we might prioritize that one over others. And I guess it just creates people connect better to this form of content because you can actually see and hear. So it's bringing in more of those five senses that we talked about earlier, which then helps people connect. You can show your voice and and the audience and community have a better sense of connection to you. And then written text. So this is where we would see things in a newsletter or blogs, and testimonials could come from anyone. It could be something that you get from people within your organization, but also members of the public that have maybe interacted with you before. And this is always good because you can share those anywhere. They can be shared on your website or on your social media channels. And I think testimonials is a biggie for it's another way of sharing your story, but it's coming from other people. Cool. So let's see how we're doing for time, Tame.
Yep.
See what 12:30. Okay, cool. Thank you. Just thinking of Shakubo. Before we get into that, I might just go into newsletters a little bit more, because I know a lot of you might be doing this already, but if you're not, it's a good opportunity to start and is something that will help you, another way of sharing our story online. So it could be something that you do weekly, monthly, quarterly, it's totally up to you, but a way that you can get people to sign up to that is having a link on a website, and then you can share that on your social media channels as well, so you're getting the word out there for people to sign up, but then you want to encourage them of why they should do that. So what are you going to be sharing in your newsletter? That's probably a good place to start and figure out what you want to share in there first. But I think they're great ways of highlighting, another way of highlighting what you do. You can highlight volunteers of that month and showcase what they've been doing. Thank people that have been part of your organisation or thank people that have helped you, and then just keep the community up to date with what you're doing. The more people learn about you and they know your story, they might want to start interacting with you a bit more, so attending your events or volunteering their time. Cool, so I think that's probably good for that section. So I thought we might go into a little bit more because we're talking a lot about storytelling and storytelling online. So we know that they're quite different because of the mediums that you have to work with in an online world. But some tips I think that might help with this, and you can always refer back to this when you're thinking about it. But you want it to be emotional. So I see a lot of the time you see facts and figures shared online, which is good. You do want to do that, but you want to back it up with a story or something that creates emotion as well, so not just numbers, because this helps us tell our story and it will engage people a lot more. And then the second thing would be to build a character. So we know that people connect with people. They also connect with animals. Animals are always quite popular in an online world that drives engagement. But then also maybe a special place. So these are, it could be, that could be a volunteer, it could be a member of your staff, someone of the public, or maybe it's an area of the ngahere that you're working on. Maybe that it's a great place to show that and give a story a bit of a character and a background. And then also you want to just check in of who are you talking to online. What do you think is going to resonate with them the most? Who are your audience? Do you know their age? Do you know where they're located? What they're interested in? All these things are quite good to know. And you again, it might be something that you already know from doing it for a long time, but there are tools that you can look into on Facebook and Instagram that show you a little bit more about that. I haven't got it on the slide, but if you have a notepad and you want to write it down, just look up for a tab or a page that's called Insights, and then that gives you a good overview of who you kind of already have connecting with you online, which helps for coming up with ideas later. And then, the senses is a good one, because we talked about it earlier of how we tend to lose those when it comes to sharing a story or sharing who we are online. So to be able to keep those alive and for people to be able to connect with it a bit more, if there's any way that you can bring them into a story by describing it, then that's always a good idea as well. And then find fresh perspectives. So people might get used to one person kind of taking the lead on being your voice, or being the voice online who does the most typing and kind of has that brand feel to it. But sometimes it could be good to mix it up with new perspectives. So getting an employee to feature on there, and then mixing it up in your team. Maybe ask volunteers. Volunteers are always a big one, because they can share. That is a story in itself. What the volunteers are doing is another story that our community can connect with. So asking for them to share that, and then having that either posted on a website or on your social media channels. Cool. So I might go to the next one. This is just a snapshot, so we won't spend too much time on here. But if I'm trying to see if there's any people online. The slides will be available after as well. So if you are watching this live or you're watching it later, then we can definitely get the slides to you as well, because this will be a good place to come back to when you're kind of thinking what you might want to post about, because it's good having all that other information, but sometimes coming up with an idea can be the hardest part. So here's a few examples for you to refer back to. So you could look at one of these and then come up with many ideas from that. So definitely, have that highlight there ready for when you need it. One of my favorite ones out of these that I think always helps build that connection with your community is meeting the team, and a bit about behind the scenes. So people always want to know who's behind something, who are the people. Like I mentioned before, we connect with people, so sharing that as much as you can is really important. And then that's also showing personality online, which is engaging for people. And then behind the scenes, so anything, sometimes it can feel a bit like what's the word, what you see online. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Anyway, you see what you see on a social media channel or a website can look like that's it. Sometimes showing behind the scenes gives people, and even it feels exciting for them, because they get to see a little bit more about what you do, and they feel like they're almost part of your team by seeing behind the scenes. I've just got a few examples here. This is something that you could do in your own time as well, if you do already have a social media channel or you're looking to get started. Predator Free New Zealand, Forest and Bird, and the Environment New Zealand page, they all have some great examples to go from. There are a lot more out there, so definitely spend a bit of time doing that research when you get started, just for ideas. So it's always good to have, you're always going to have your own brand story and your own look and feel, but it's quite good to look at what other people are doing in your industry to help you with ideas to sharing your story. Cool, so these are some good links that I wanted to share with you guys today. We briefly touched on the second one, which is a scheduling tool that's part of Facebook. So we looked at the calendar and how you can plan ahead with things. But another one is called Canva. A lot of our team love using this tool, and it's actually used by quite a few people. It's quite popular. And we'll do a quick walkthrough of it now, just so you can see what it looks like. But it's super easy to use for here we go, for anyone really. You don't have to have any design skills to use this. They have a lot of templates for you, and this is just another way of visually showing who you are and putting something in there that can make your brand stand out. And there's lots of templates, so for an example, you could use, it's got an Instagram post one there already, so we could pop into there and click on templates up here. So there's a lot, like you could type anything in here. If you had an event coming up or you wanted to showcase, I know we talked about statistics and figures before. If you back it up by emotion by putting the text with that, then that's good. But to show that, this could be the perfect place to come. You could pick a template here that you could play around with and pop that in there. And yeah, have a look around. There's a lot in here to explore, but it's a great tool for anyone that has social media, or if you're looking to get started. Where are we? Cool, so I talked quite a lot about social media. I thought it might be good just because of, well, we're on Zoom today, but how things are going in the world, we're using Zoom a lot more in our mahi. So just a few things that we've picked up and other people have kind of mentioned that might be good to note here to refer back to or try and have with your team is quite good. So just a bit of best practices from what we found is it's always quite nice to start and end a meeting or a hui or a presentation with a karakia, and then introduction. So you could go into this in more depth if you had more time, depending on how many people are actually in the call. But when we're the other side of a screen, it's quite hard to know who someone is and build that connection and share our story. So having an opportunity to share that and have a bit of an introduction is quite nice. I think an agenda, depending how big the session is going to be, could be quite useful, because then you stay on track, and it's just like a meeting, I guess. If you were going in person, you have something to refer to of what you're doing there today, and then everyone knows what's happening for that session. And then just another few things, like I guess if you were talking in a meeting and it was time, or you had a question or something that you wanted to raise, you would probably pop your hand up, or you would wait for someone to finish. But we can use similar things like this on Zoom. There's features for that, like raising your hand. I noticed in another meeting someone used it and it worked quite well. Just makes everyone feel like they have a voice and that you're part of that meeting or that session. And then having a dedicated facilitator. So like today, we're lucky to have Tame here facilitating the session, but I think any kind of Zoom experience is always, it feels a bit nicer when you have someone that takes the lead or guides the conversation and the session. So a facilitator is another thing to look into. Maybe that's someone that's already part of your team that might want to do that, or if it's for something like a hui, then reaching out to people that might want to be part of that. And then also the chat room. So the chat room is a great feature for continuing the conversation after and getting to know a bit more about who you are and your story, or if there's something you want to share, then using that feature as well. There's a lot more that you could go into with Zoom, but we just found with moving a lot of things online and how the digital world is evolving, it's quite nice to still include or refer back to some of these things. I thought I'd just put this here for just in case anyone is thinking that they might want to learn a bit more about this. So I know for some of you, social media is something that you're doing already, or you're doing quite well already, but then there might be some of you out there that it's kind of becoming the norm, and it's something that you do want to be doing. There's another opportunity to share your story in an online world. So these links are good places to go to kind of learn more about social media and how to use it and storytelling tips. And then we could potentially run workshops for you. We could connect with other people that we could do workshops. So if there's something that you are interested in, go check out our newsletter and then sign up to that. And then if we get feedback from this hui, that could be something we can put on for you guys. So definitely let us know. And I think that's me. That's everything for now. I don't think we had too many people on this live call, so there might not be too many questions. Is Canva a free tool? Yes, Canva is a free tool. You can get upgrades that might let you do a little bit more, but generally it's free. And I think you can look into getting, if you are a not-for-profit, there are options, I think, to get some of those funded for you or get a bit of a discount. That will be something that you can look into if you want. Yeah.
Oh, do you want to stop sharing your screen, and Hannah?
Yeah, sure thing.
And while you're doing that, tēnei ka mihi ki a koe, nāwi whirawhira i rā mātauranga. Thank you so much for sharing that knowledge. I've got a ton of questions here. So for those of you online, if you want to fire through questions, please do. Otherwise, I'm going to take up all of the airtime. Most of these questions are quick fire, so feel free to just rattle off quick answers off the top of your head because there's quite a few, but I'm hoping that these are questions that other people have.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Before I do, just again, thank you. Right from the start, the online versus in person, I've always struggled with that, and I think it comes down to the authenticity. In person, you get to feel that, you just know. And then when you talked about the vision, the mission, and that consistent messaging and how it all ties together, for me, that adds that authenticity. So I am able to build that over time. So for those watching, that could be another little hint or tip or trick. That long-term consistent messaging will help with authenticity and engagement.
Yeah, definitely. So I think because you don't have those senses and you're kind of only left with a few mediums to work with, if you do spend a bit of time on your brand story and getting those right, then your messaging it's quite easy to convey that in an online world. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up again, because it's an important one for remaining authentic, I guess, which is the kaupapa of this hui.
Okay, another quick question. Target audience. Do you decide that before you go down the path of social media engagement?
Yeah, so there are two ways that you can look into this. So I guess if it's a brand new social media channel, then you might already have a bit of an idea from maybe events that you've had in the past or who your volunteers are, depending what you do. So you might have that information already, but then online, if you've been building that up over time, then your target audience will be in there. Facebook has pretty clever tools and like a data system, a way of putting it together, so it will show you where they're located, the age, what they're interested in, and this kind of thing. I think I'd mentioned it before, but for those of you that didn't catch it, it's called Insights, and there's a link. I might not be able to put a link in this one because for those watching after, it might not show up, but it's found on your Facebook page, and you can do a bit of research into that. So if you find it, then do some digging, and you'll be able to see kind of who your target audience are online already. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and for those of you watching, if you don't know, just give Hannah a call and she'll tell you where it is.
Yeah, definitely. I'll pop as part of the Hui, we'll put these online as well and on our social media, and I'll put my details there too.
Thank you. You mentioned Facebook, and then you talked a lot about Twitter, Instagram. What about Twitter and TikTok? Are they worth exploring?
It's a good question. Twitter's quite good for, I guess there's a demographic for that as well, and that's good for, you can post multiple times a day for that one compared to Facebook and Instagram, where you don't want to spam people too much. It's like sharing a bit of your story across the week. Twitter's in time, real, exactly what's coming from what someone's thinking. It's usually just an update or a bit of text. I haven't done too much on Twitter before, but I know for some people it works really well, so I guess that's something that you could maybe look into. TikTok's also an interesting one. We are kind of in the position where we're looking into that as well, but we know there's a feature on Instagram called Reels, which is kind of like TikTok. You can do the same thing. It's easy, digestible videos that show who you are, but you can be it's a bit more playful. We can have fun with that. But then there's also a separate audience on TikTok. I'd say that's younger generation. It's again, so depending on what you're trying to show or what message you want to get out there, TikTok could be another one to explore.
I feel old enough just playing on Instagram. So I'll leave TikTok to anyone else who can engage with the younger audience. You mentioned playful. What about memes or even funny content? Is it worth exploring that?
Yeah, I think I always, with questions like that, I always go back to, again, your story and who you are. So depending on what you want to achieve and what your audience is, memes can be really good. And for those of you that are listening and you're thinking, what is this language or what is this? A meme is, it usually has an image backed up by a bit of text that has humor behind it, or usually they're funny, right? Like memes have a bit of humor. But then if that's what you want to portray online, if you are an organization that likes to use humor, then definitely. But if your focus is high level educational information that you don't want to confuse people and have those kinds of things as well, then maybe don't use them. But for online stuff and for social media, it's just about having a go and seeing what works, what people resonate with, and then you can kind of grow that from there.
I like that. Yeah, because there's always going to be trying to find your core messaging and testing different avenues.
Yeah.
On that as well, then, what about giveaways? Are they a good way to engage people on social media?
Yeah, definitely. I love seeing giveaways, and definitely if the messaging behind it is good. So it's a good way of growing an audience. So there might be some people that already kind of follow you or engage with you online. It's a great way for them to then tag other people that might be interested in whatever it is that you're giving away, or depending on your organization, their friends are going to be tagging people that are also potentially interested in that. So it definitely helps you to grow, but also it's a good way of just thanking your community. So if you're wanting to celebrate something and you just feel like the community are part of that, then yeah, I really like giveaways for that reason. It just shows that you're thankful for their support and keeps them feeling like they're part of it, I guess.
Cool. You mentioned in there, these are all great answers, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to rush through all the questions because I know time is precious.
That's all good. Thank you.
You mentioned just in that answer and previously in your presentation about growing your numbers and then what it leads on to. So does a number of likes, number of followers correlate to success?
That's a really great question. So personally, and just a few other people, and kind of what others are starting to look into, is there's a word for that, and we kind of call it vanity metrics. So it's not, they are helpful for growth, but it doesn't, you could have an audience of 50 people that are far more engaged than an audience of 500 people. So likes and figures in that way, don't get caught up on it. I wouldn't say that it's important, and that doesn't define success. I think success is attendees at events, or people wanting to sign up and volunteer, or people that are loyal to your business or your organization. So if they're supporting you in some way, then I would say that's more successful than a number on a screen.
Another question then following on, kind of touched on it there about collaboration. What about liking and sharing other pages that are of similar mindsets or similar kaupapa?
Yeah.
I'd recommend it.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Definitely recommend it, because it's, I guess, to be able to, we're all kind of here for a very similar reason. It depends, depending what your industry is, but you're kind of all trying to achieve a similar thing. And collaboration, you're going to get somewhere a lot farther or a lot quicker by working with others than if you were doing it on your own. And sometimes there are other people that are doing mahi that's similar to you, but shares a great message. So yeah, why not share that and support each other?
Then on the other hand, then what about controversial kaupapa? You see someone post something you don't like or doesn't go with your brand and your vision, values and stuff like that. Do you share it with your own whakaaro on it, or the company or the organisations, the entities whakaaro?
Yeah, so just to make sure I'm getting that question, you mean if someone as part of your organisation shares it, or if you see someone that's doing something similar to you but they share something negative?
Yeah, let's say, I mean, in my instance, someone says, cats are amazing, we need to release more of them in the wild. Would me, if I had a page, would I share that saying, hey, this is actually bad information, we should not be, we should be actually looking to control cats, or something like that? Yeah,
I get what you mean. That's a good question too. It's so many good questions. It depends how you look at it. Facebook is more, I would say Facebook is more of a page where you can do that. It's about sharing a story and your opinion on things, but like anything, just be respectful. And if it's an opportunity for you to share something that's educational, that actually, you know yourself is true to you, and you know that that piece of education is right, then I would still say that it's okay to share it, because it's another opportunity.
Cool. And we've got time for probably one last question. You touched on some good examples. Are there any other great examples or campaigns you would recommend to go look out for, or go rewatch or engage with, to say, hey, actually, here's something that worked from start to finish?
Yeah. I just have to have a think on that one. In this moment, I might struggle to think of them, but that is a good question that could be useful for people. So I could always post that somewhere as part of this hui, either on our Facebook or Instagram story, to direct people to that. I'm just trying to think of something that pops into mind. I'll give a plug in for that one. Yeah, go. If you.
Te Tira Whakamataki, ttw.nz, Te Tira Whakamataki. We kind of followed exactly what you've done. We knew our core values, and we've gone through the whole process, but we're a couple of years old now and we're still going through it. So we know our sort of our brand messaging. Now we're working on campaigns or individual programs that we can promote. So I took a lot of learning away from this kōrero.
Ah, awesome. Kia ora. Thank you, Tame. That's good. And I'll definitely check it out. I'll make a note of that. That's awesome though that you've been on that journey yourselves as well, and you do it once and it makes it easier for the future, right? So if you spend time on it, then it helps sharing the story in the long run.
Oh, we've been very lucky though. Our CEO is very onto it, and our comms manager. Between the two of them, they have done an amazing job. So I shouldn't be getting any credit for them. It's them. I see we are fast approaching the end of this time. Any final comments from you, Hannah?
I hope people don't feel too overwhelmed by this kōrero, and social media and moving things online can feel a bit daunting. But just reach out if you have any questions, but also just do one thing at a time. It is worth it, and it does seem like that's the way things are going now, and people do find opportunities online. So if you're not there showing up, then you could be missing an opportunity to show who you are and your story and connect with the community. That's probably about it from me.
Anō ngā mihi ki a koe, nā o kōrero ko puta tēnei tauira ki te whai a te ao mārama o tēnei mea te mātauranga. Thank you for sharing your kōrero again. I did see on one of your slides you talked about opening and closing with a karakia. And before I do close our hui with a karakia, I thought I'd just quickly mention that karakia can cover a range of things. They can be asking the divine for guidance and blessing, right through to just ensuring everyone's in the right mind space. So please don't feel when you see a karakia coming, automatically think it is jumping into something religious, because it can be a range of things. It can be anywhere along the spectrum. I opened us with pretty much just asking us to clear our minds so that we can get it filled with as much knowledge as possible, and that we can establish some links between everyone, because we're all on the same boat, really. And I feel like we have achieved that. So, with that, I'll close our hui. Tēnei tātai, ko tukuna ngā whakaaro ki te whai tata, tēnei hoki tātai, ko tukuna ngā wawata ki te whai tawhiti, hoki wairua mai ki a tātou, hoki irihia e nei kōrero, ki te patu manu o tēnā, tūturu whakamaua ki a tīna. Haumia huie, pai ki e.
Kia ora.
Thank you, everyone.